Hello again and welcome to the Anita Posch Show, a Bitcoin-only podcast presented by Sovryn. My guest today is Fang. Hong is the CEO of OKcoin, a global cryptocurrency platform serving over 190 countries. Hong left Wall Street for cryptocurrency after realizing that digital assets offer the financial inclusion that traditional finance only claims to. As always, you can watch this interview on YouTube and listen to it in your favorite podcast player, or you grasp the opportunity to be among the early adopters and listen to it in a Lightning-enabled podcast app like Breeze, the Fountain app, or Sphinx Chat. And now a short message from my sponsors and then on to the show. Enjoy! Living on crypto is easier than you think with Bitrefill. Choose from over 4,000 gift cards and mobile top-up options from around the world. I used Bitrefill to top up my phone when I was visiting Zimbabwe. It was easy, worked like a charm, and I even earned sats back. Pay with Bitcoin, Lightning, Ethereum, Dash, Tether over Tron, and many more options. No account is necessary. Join the thousands of users around the world who are living on crypto today using Bitrefill. Join now at bitrefill.com and start earning sats back with each purchase. That's bitrefill.com.
Learn Bitcoin will teach you the why and how to use Bitcoin. Anita's book is a concise and approachable introduction to Bitcoin. Lynn Alden, investment strategist. Order your copy now at learnbitcoin.link. That's learnbitcoin.link.
Every day, millions of foreign workers send a portion of their hard-earned money back to their families and friends living in their home country. These remittance payments can be an economic lifeline for some countries. Although traditional means of remittance like money transfer operators have dominated this space, crypto remittances are more popular than ever. In 2020 alone, roughly $562 million worth of crypto was transferred from overseas into wallets based in Africa, all in retail-sized payments. Everyone deserves a more efficient means of remittance, one with no financial middleman taking fees. Try remitting with crypto today on Paxful. Avoid the high fees of traditional remittance and make money by sending money back home. Start now at anita.link/Paxful-remit. That's one word. anita.link/ and then Paxful-remit. Did you know that leaving your keys on centralized exchanges is extremely risky? Not only are you giving up your privacy, but you also give up total control of your funds. The best time to take back control is now. Go to sovryn.app and never again ask for permission to use your money. That's sovryn.app. Hello, Fang. Welcome to the Anita Posch Show.
Thank you for having me, Anita.
I'm very honored and glad to have you on. You're the CEO of OKcoin. But if our listeners don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I spend most of let me back up. I grew up in China, and then I spent pretty much all my professional life in finance, Wall Street. Went to Goldman Sachs in 2008, the great age to be in, to see all the turbulence in the financial sector. And I was actually with the Financial Institutions Group. So started in LA and then ended up in New York, the headquarters of Goldman, always with financial institutions. So I got to see everything that's happening, crazy stuff happening in that sector, starting from 2008. And then I spent 8 years there, and then I left, went on to do growth equity investment, spent a lot of time in China and some time in US. And as part of my growth investment career, I actually ended up investing in OKcoin. I led a Series B investment in OKcoin. Back then, it was the largest crypto platform in China, basically facilitating RMB to crypto trading. obviously back then, most of the trading are actually Bitcoin and Litecoin. So that was in end of 16. So I spent some years on the board, and took me a while to make the decision. But in 2019, I finally made the decision, switched from an investor to a operator, joined OKcoin as the CEO, and here I am. I've been here for more than 2 years now. We are based now in San Francisco with the team. Mostly in US, but also have a pretty significant footprint in Europe, in LATAM, Asia, around the globe. So it's been fun.
Yeah, great. Let's talk about your global presence later a little bit. I'm interested in how did you find Bitcoin? I mean, I guess at your work for Goldman Sachs and on Wall Street, you will have heard of it. But when and how did you realize that this is the area where you want to work in or invest?
Yeah, I think compared to a lot of the OGs, I'm probably the dumb one. I heard about Bitcoin in 2019. I was obviously in banking. I was a banker.
2009, I think, because you
sorry,
just said 2013.
2013. 2013. I heard about Bitcoin from a banker. She's really smart. She was in structured finance. And during a meeting, she brought this up during the break and said, do you guys know about Bitcoin? It's a very interesting invention. It was, quite cheap, but the price has been going up pretty well. It just didn't. I didn't get it. So I just let it slide by. What a mistake. And then in 2013, when I got to know OKcoin when looking for investment opportunities, and that was really the first time for me to really dive into it, look at what Bitcoin is, and really went down the rabbit hole. And that was also my first enlightenment moment, if you will, to realize that actually this is something completely new. It's something that showed me what is possibly actually free versus, financial market that I thought was free was not free, right? The money was actually not free. When the foundation is not free, how can you have a free markets? I was kind of getting to that conclusion when I was at Goldman, because we see, particularly around 2008, as you can imagine, everything was tumbling down, and you see great wealth destruction in all kinds of sectors, except for financial institutions. It was quite ironic, but my class at Goldman, pretty much all of my classmates in other groups, they were moved around, and they were all, or some of them were kind of idly sitting there, not knowing what to do and getting concerned about their future. But financial institutions group back then was super, super busy because all the banks are trying to raise money, and then there are all kinds of financial engineering going on. We had blind pool trying to save all those banks. It was perplexing, right? You see all the wealth destruction, but then the financial sector is too big to fail. And you end up seeing the government using taxpayer money to save those financial institutions. And we were working on deals where there could be organic ways of making it work, but then the government stepped in and actually break those deals and take it away. But then all those PE investors, they struck deal with the government, and government take loss share. They have loss sharing agreements. The government take all the loss. And then the PE get, actually, that was the best return any PE investor can imagine. If they put money into financial industry, between 2008 and 2010, that was the best return, vintage, if you will. So that was, I didn't realize that when I was there. I just know that something was wrong. But then when I actually go through what Bitcoin is, I realized that actually, you know what, this is a new paradigm.
It's a new possibility. And I mean, what I understand, so basically the time where the world was in the biggest financial crisis, the reason for it was the financial system and the banks and what they were doing. And then they were profiting the most from that. So
Yeah. There's no other way around it other than having to make those hard decisions and let it crumble. Right, but most politicians won't make those hard decisions, and plus the whole system is built on top of manipulated money, and even if you reset, it will still go in the direction where you got to a point where we were in 2008, unless you change the way the system is set up.
Okay, what do you mean with manipulated money in that way? The system, how fiat works, or is there anything else?
I mean, the money, the way we understand money right now is very new, right? The most of our human history, money is actually hard money. It's not manufactured by people or government, right? It's either what is already in nature, starting with even things like shells, and then moving on to metals, more precious metals, from less precious metals to more precious metals. But bottom line is, there's even when there's gold, there's no central entity who can actually control or change the supply of gold, right? Manufacture, mining of gold. It's just out there. But once the world moved off the gold standard, government started to print money, there's no ceiling over monetary supply. It's all centrally planned, right? And all the macroeconomics classes that we've got all say that inflation is good, is necessary, unless if you don't have certain level of inflation, the economy will be in big trouble. But the thing is, when you do have that and zoom out 50 years, zoom out 100 years, it's very clear that there's big wealth transformation, wealth transfer, wealth reallocation through that money supply manipulation. Particularly affects people in the 90% category. You don't have enough. You're basically earning your wage through labor, and then you don't really have enough venue to put money into quote unquote investment that get you yield big enough to beat the inflation. And there's that compound effect that basically amplify the gap. And there's not much mobility once you get on that path. Plus, when you look at the market, free markets that we are looking at, we all talk about free markets. I actually went to Chicago Business School, right? And the reason I went to Chicago Business School, part of that is I believe in free markets. I want to learn about things like that. But the most important thing in free markets is to have price signals that works. But in today's market, when we look at price, the price is denominated in fiat money. And that introduced a lot of noises into the system, right? And I think there's always a lot of debate around why, when there's so much money printing, we don't see inflation going up. And people are like, okay, it's okay. You can print money, but what people don't really see is that, number one, there's this globalization going on. There's this technology innovation going on that keep the price low for groceries. And number two, a lot of those money printing, people are rational. People want to maximize their profit, maximize their wealth, right? So when you cannot get enough return in reality, and there's a lot of financial engineering in the capital markets, and yields are only available in financial markets, you see all the newly printed money going into financial markets, starting with real estate and stock. That's why, in the most recent cases after COVID is that on the one hand, people are feeling that the world is tumbling down for average people, for small businesses. But on the other hand, when you look at Wall Street Journal, it seems to be perfectly fine. Stock is all-time high. Real estate is all-time high. There's just bifurcation of reality. And that's all because the price signal is manipulated. There are a lot of noises there.
Speaking of the price signal, what I would be interested in is where I can't get my head around is, so let's say we have a global market and we have a global money, say Bitcoin. So everybody is using Bitcoin. Then the prices will be, how is it called? Not written on. So you will denominate prices for goods in Bitcoin. So, but how can then, there are differences in prices for goods. Like in Austria, maybe a leaf of bread costs more than in a country in Africa. Or I have to say, I take an online good or product as an example. So will this level out the wealth differences, or what will happen here?
I think you're asking two different questions.
Maybe.
You're asking about prices for the same item around the globe, and then you're asking about wealth, more equality or equity in wealth.
Yes.
I think these two are slightly two different things. In terms of prices, I think it's almost coming down to supply and demand, right? And it really depends on what kind of what do you call it, thing
product
that we're looking at, that we're attaching a price to. If that merchandise, if you will, let me call it merchandise. If that merchandise is in nature digital, and it's very easy to, it's digital and natively digital, right? For example, music. For example, a lot of the content that, for example, you are creating here. That type of merchandise, the supply is digital, so it's very easily globally distributed. The demand of it is also digital, so it's also very easily globally distributed. For that type of merchandise, I can see that the price of it should very much be similar around the globe, unless.
And that's what I meant. That's what I meant with leveling it out.
Unless there is difference in accessing certain type of things, right? So, i.e., for example, if the merchandise is not natively digital, then there are other costs coming into the play here, right? For example, cows. Supply of cow and demand of cow would be very different. And there's transportation costs and there are other pieces related to it. I can hardly imagine that the price of cow would be the same across the globe. For example, in North Pole versus Australia, it would be very different. But at least you take out the noises of FX fluctuation. Right now, it's like, apart from that simple supply and demand calculation, you have to also apply for supply and demand of the money. Then, and almost like arbitrage, and the whole FX trading is a big business in itself, right? And can you imagine the whole industry being supported and well supported by central government policies around the globe? Yeah, I think that would be my take. In terms of larger wealth equity, I think it's not. I don't think it will make it really like everyone equally wealthy. But at least I think it will give a little bit more level playing field for people who want to access to certain things. They can also at least earn money and preserve their wealth through hard working, instead of having to worry about money not being valuable down the road. They have to spend it, things like that. If they can save, and it can actually become pretty significant over time, right? and think about, for example, my parents. I was born in China. I grew up in China. Where I remember when I was born, that was actually the age of open door policy in China, when China was the first year when China started to embrace market economy. But I still remember when I was young, the economy there was still pretty small, and my parents, like if I'm thinking about people around us who have more than call it 100,000 RMB back then in wealth, are almost considered more than billionaires today, U.S. billionaire today. So just imagine, putting aside U.S.-China difference, just imagine the devaluation of fiat currency over the last 20 years. It's mind-blowing. Yeah.
So speaking of China, I guess you also have a lot of experience and knowledge about Bitcoin in China. What's your opinion on the latest ban of China banning Bitcoin mining? And I've read some news headlines that China is re-evaluating it. I don't know if this is true. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I saw that too. I don't think China's stance on Bitcoin or crypto have changed much since 2017. Yeah, we moved out of China in 17 upon that policy change. Basically, the government is not banning the asset itself, so you can own, but you cannot run a platform that help people trade from RMB to Bitcoin or from Bitcoin to RMB. So that has been always the stance, and I think it still is today. What happened earlier this year was that the government take a stricter stance or more stern stance on mining, on Bitcoin mining. There are different theories about why that was the case. To me personally, I think it was pretty sad because I do think that Bitcoin is the future, and it's just sad to see a country giving up so much on something that there was actually years of efforts into it. However, I think it's also Chinese have a word called crisis, but the Chinese word for crisis actually have two characters. The first character in that word means crisis. The second word in the character means opportunity. So I think it's a great example. What happened is a great example of that, because it is actually another window to show that the Bitcoin network is anti-fragile. Everybody was not really sure what will happen if there was a shock to the mining space in China, and now we all know that actually it was okay, right? And then next time you probably need to worry about what will happen if U.S. government ban Bitcoin mining, which I think is very low likelihood, but I think after that ban, people feel more comfortable, even more confident in the anti-fragility of the network itself. Yeah, I feel complicated about it.
Yeah, and I guess also maybe the Chinese CBDC is a reason for it. I don't know. Don't you think?
I don't know. Yeah, I there are many different theories about it. It's hard to guesstimate what really is going on.
And what's your take on CBDCs in general?
I can tell you my overall take on CBDC, regardless of China or any other government. I'm always suspicious of CBDC as a whole, because to me, what makes Bitcoin unique is not the fact that it's digital money. we have digital money, right? The credit cards, debit cards, PayPal, Venmo, all those kind of stuff that we have, WeChat, Alipay, WeChat Pay, all those are digital money. And if you are living in Asia, in China, most of 90% of your transaction are in digital money. The cash is not much required. I think the uniqueness of Bitcoin is, again, about its natively digital, but also more importantly, it's resistant to censorship. It's decentralized. Decentralized is a kind of a trend word for our industry, but I think what it really means is that nobody can own it or control it, right? And it's programmable. So from that perspective, does CBDC gives us what we need? No, it does. It does nothing about it. How is it going to be different from the digital money we already have? It probably means that the central banks will take away some of the financial power from commercial banks, right? Because people will have direct access to central banks' balance sheet. That can have implication on the financial system itself, but it doesn't change the nature of it. Number one, it may reduce the leverage allowed in the system, but it doesn't change the nature of it. So I'm very suspicious of it. I don't like the CBDC idea, either China or any other government. It's basically enhancing the censorship. But I think if any, and I don't think I am doubtful that CBDC can be successfully pulled off. I have a big question mark around that. But if any government can do it, it's not necessarily a bad idea longer term, I think, for overall crypto. I think they give people education, right, of what it is. From a tool perspective, people have to get used to using something that is more compatible to crypto. And also, I think if any CBDC is enforced on a population, people will probably treasure their privacy a lot more, and that will drive their demand for real crypto, for Bitcoin. So I think longer term, if it does happen, it should be bullish for crypto itself.
It has a learning effect then for people, yeah. So,
I think so.
Yeah, you just mentioned Bitcoin and crypto. I'm interested in your stance there. I mean, OKcoin is trading a lot of, you know where this leads.
I know.
That's
I know exactly.
the Bitcoin only and why not altcoins question. I mean, OKcoin is trading altcoins too, of course. But what's your take on that? Your personal take?
I think I'm not a Bitcoin only person. Although I am more dominantly Bitcoin, but I don't think so. Here's what I think. The reason I like Bitcoin is that I think it gives us an exit. It gives us an opportunity to rebuild the system on a new foundation that is really free, right? And that foundation is monetary. So there are two important things here. One is it is a new foundation. It's a new monetary foundation that is free. Two, we need to build on top of it. Both of those two are important. So I understand that a lot of people are hardcore Bitcoin only people, and I highly admire that. And I think the education piece of Bitcoin to a larger population actually ride a lot on the passion of that group of people. That is important. But I myself is not a Bitcoin only person, and I actually I don't think that I'm signing up for a Bitcoin only future. The reason being that if you have only Bitcoin, which I think is what's happening well, not what's happening now, but when we see the adoption, mainstream adoption of Bitcoin since last year, right? More and more individuals are getting into it. More and more institutions are saying yes to it. More and more governments are saying yes to it. And then you have ETF now. The position of Bitcoin as a store of value, as a asset class, is getting solidified, which is good, which is a great starting point. But I don't think that is enough. And I think the real risk right now is that becomes the only thing for Bitcoin. It's only an asset class. Particularly with institutional money coming in, with government money coming in, if we're not building on Bitcoin or building on something else that is also going in the right direction of decentralization, and I can actually speak to Bitcoin as the fundamental settlement layer, then Bitcoin can just become an asset class. It can, right? Because in that sense, it can become just a decoration of the existing financial system. You're not going to be able to replace the current system. You're replacing the monetary layer. But what if most institutions and governments end up buying most of the supply, right? Isn't that equal almost to gold previously being hoarded by government? How are you going to build a new world on top of it? It's not going to change much for ordinary people. So there gotta be continued building on top of Bitcoin and alongside Bitcoin that speak to Bitcoin that can really bring the right future to us. This is just the first step. So I don't believe in this being a last step. I think it has to be a first step. And that's why we believe a lot in Bitcoin first, because this is the most important foundation. And that's why we as a platform has been very vocal about supporting it, either the developer or Bitcoin smart contract layer like stacks or other related development. But we also are very vocal about supporting Lightning, which is basically developing utility on top of Bitcoin, and supporting other protocols. Again, many of them are probably not perfect, but you got to be open-minded about it, right? We got into Bitcoin because we are open-minded. We see a new paradigm, and we have to believe in the power of technology and innovation. Even if what we are seeing today is not perfect, we have to believe in it so that the community can continue to iterate on it and build something better, exponentially better, right? All the DeFi stuff that we were seeing last year, GameFi that we're seeing this year, NFT, none of these are new concepts. Those were around in 2017. It was just more real this time. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but at least it gets us closer to what is possible. It has to be a circular, self-sustainable system where you have Bitcoin, you have different layers on top of it, then you have probably parallel pieces that speak to it that has a circular system instead of here's the existing legacy system and then Bitcoin as an asset class dangling on it. Like, what does it do?
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean. Speaking of Lightning, OKcoin was one of the first exchanges to integrate Lightning. What are your experiences here? I mean, how are people using it, accepting it?
Yeah, there have been a decent amount of customers using it. It's interesting to see that the customers using Lightning to deposit into our platform versus those who use it to withdraw are quite balanced. Probably larger average ticket for deposit than withdraw, but it's quite balanced. And I don't know if you tried it. It's amazing. It's very smooth experience, very fast, very low fee, great for cross-border micro payments, and that is permissionless. You don't have to, you don't have to go through a long process and wait for 3 days or 4 days to get your money to another party, right? It's great. It's just instant.
Great. And do you also see that with Lightning, Bitcoin is becoming more and more also a medium of exchange? That's what you were referring to before. Like if we take the example of El Salvador, where we both, I guess, are going in the next weeks to get our own impression of what is happening. What's your take at the moment on this experiment?
It's definitely early. On our platform, I don't think the majority of the customers are not using it. It's still I would call it 10 to 20%, maybe a small amount, who are just experimenting. And some of them actually come to us because of Lightning, right? They actually want it, and some probably just end up using it. So it's definitely the early stage. And I think there's still a long way to go, right? For it to really be helpful. You need to have a wider network of merchants accepting it. And I think Twitter making that tipping function available is a huge thing. It's great. I love everything that Jack Dorsey's doing there. It's doing great. So we are committed. We don't expect this to suddenly become the payment network overnight. It's probably not going to get there in 12 months, right? You're comparing where Lightning is versus where Visa, MasterCard, Alipay is. There's still a long way to go. Setting up the channels, increasing channel capacity, rebalancing. It takes a lot of time, and we have been also very diligent about trying different things, adding on different things, opening new nodes, new channels, and adding channel capacity, and then trying to figure out where are the risks and things like that, right? So I think it will take some time, but the direction is pretty clear. The growth is pretty clear, and you never know. It's things like El Salvador, right? It just happened overnight. I was earlier this year. Before 2021 kicked in, I was trying to figure out, okay, what may happen in 21. I was asking myself, and then one of the things that I thought may be helpful is some central bank started to buy Bitcoin as a reserve. I'm pretty sure, putting aside El Salvador, I'm pretty sure actually some central banks have already been doing that without making that announcement. But having a sovereign country actually adopting it as legal measure, that's definitely not in my cards. So you never know. But yeah, I think it's bullish. It takes time, but it's bullish.
I think so too. Speaking of markets and emerging markets, what are OKcoin's biggest markets in emerging countries?
We see a lot of demand from LATAM, from Africa, Asia as well. I would say that obviously North America and Europe are actually our primary markets. North America in particular. The customer behavior and user case tend to be different in different jurisdictions. And I think part of it is because of the economic environment and central bank policy of different region. Yeah, we tend to see more hodlers and investors in North America, more traders from Asia, and then more users from LATAM and Africa.
And what do you mean? What do you mean with users? What's the use case there?
Meaning people are actually buying almost like a hodler, but we also have from LATAM institutional customers, companies who do cross-border transactions, international transactions, like commodities. They sell commodities to other regions, and they settle in Bitcoin. And then they come to us to using OKcoin as the on-ramp and off-ramp. But they basically use Bitcoin as the settlement. So almost like, utility. There is utility because their local currency is pretty volatile, right? Using US dollar to settle sometimes is, you need bank relationship and things like that to facilitate. And Bitcoin is permissionless. So there are some cases like that for international business.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen some kind of trend in the last 2 years, let's say, in those emerging countries? Is it going up or stagnant, or like the usage of your platform and the trading volume?
It's all been going up across the board. Yeah. Activities that's been going up across the board. Again, we are seeing, compared to, say, 2019, 18, and before, we're seeing more hodlers, more yield seekers. People come to put their money, crypto, to work. We have a Earn program, which is DeFi Earn, and which is a very popular program. A lot of people come and do that.
That's interesting, because why would I put my Bitcoin in an Earn program when I then lose the uptake that Bitcoin can have? Or am I not losing it?
No. You don't put. We don't have an Earn program that has a Bitcoin Earn. So our program is, we don't come up with those stuff. We just connect to DeFi protocols out there and token projects out there. We don't charge fees. We don't arbitrarily tell you how much the yield is. It's really up to every protocol, every DeFi project, which is decided by the market of that particular project or protocol, what the yield is every day. It actually fluctuates every day. Now, what has been most popular on our product, so we have actually a couple of different things. There is staking, there is stacking, and then there are also yield through compound and yearn pool. Now, what has been most popular on our platform is actually two. One is Stack, STX, and that is a smart contract protocol built on top of Bitcoin. So the Earn product there is you basically buy STX on our platform. You put STX into the stacking pool, and there are cycles for that, and you end up earning Bitcoin. So it's not like you buy Bitcoin and put there. It's actually you buy something else. As you buy stacks and you stack stacks. When you stack stacks, you basically make Stack protocol network more secure. In return, you get Bitcoin every day. So that one is very popular. The most recent one that we had is MiamiCoin, which is a smart contract product built on top of stacks. And because it is a very early stage product, the yield on that is pretty high. And that's where you stack MiamiCoin and you earn stacks, you earn STX. So what a lot of people actually do is they buy MiamiCoin, MIA, that will give them pretty good return on STX. Then they take STX to put in the stacking to earn Bitcoin. so they actually earn Bitcoin that way.
But where do those Bitcoin then come from? Where is the profit made?
The Bitcoin earned from stacks is actually real Bitcoin. So when in STX ecosystem on that protocol, there are miners. For those miners, stack miners have to actually put Bitcoin down to bid for STX mining. So they have a very special mechanism called proof of transfer. So that Bitcoin that stack miners put down is not destroyed. It's just transferred to STX stackers. So the stackers actually yield. The miner who put down the biggest amount of Bitcoin for certain one block end up mining that block. And then the stackers take all the Bitcoin stacked there and then distribute. So basically that the Bitcoin stacked is distributed to STX stackers. So that's how it works.
Okay. It's an interesting concept.
Very simplified way. That's how it works. But yeah, it's like programmable smart contract layer on top of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're saying adoption globally or in your markets where OKcoin is operating has been going up in the last 2 years. What's your take on 2022?
Oh, 2022. I wish I have a crystal ball. And then I just, I think Bitcoin is going to continue to drive geopolitical dynamics that has already started with El Salvador. So I think there will be some interesting news happening with larger economies that can continue to shift the balance there. It will be interesting to also see some larger companies like US officially saying, okay, you know what, we can actually buy Bitcoin as reserve. That will totally change the game. And that may trigger China back into the game. You don't know. It's good and bad, right? I hope that when that happens, Lightning is strong enough to really make it a monetary network more than just asset class. And I hope that before that happens, more average people are able to actually learn about it and buy more so that it's not going to be concentrated in large organizations and governments' hand. So I'm pretty, torn on when that happens. When it happens, it's good, but it's also risky. I think there will be also new stuff happening outside Bitcoin that is going to be interesting. And I don't think I'm the best person in my organization to catch up with all those trends. There are smarter people than me who actually know more about what's happening and more open-minded than me about it. But I believe that there are interesting things happening there that we need to stay open-minded about. And ultimately, I think there will be interruptibility. That Bitcoin first is a big belief for us. Interruptibility is another big belief for us. I think ultimately we'll be able to see, hopefully, a whole system being rebuilt that can change our fabric, social fabric. That can be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. Hong, there's a saying, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Is there anything that has changed in your life or your attitude towards things that came through your knowledge of Bitcoin?
Absolutely. I mean, before Bitcoin, it never occurred to me that money can be something else other than what central bank prints. It is a very novel idea to me, and it's not an easy threshold to go over for pretty much all of us. But I think once you see that is not a given, it opens a whole door. And I think because of that, I'm pretty adamant about what we are doing here, right? With all, we are in a space that is very difficult. It's exciting. It's very exciting, but it's also very difficult, right? Because of all the regulatory landscape and all kinds of controversies and changes. It can be very tough. And competition is also up as well. But I think what keeps me excited about, what keeps our team very pumped up is really about what Bitcoin ethos stands for, right? It stands for giving every individual the voice and sovereignty. It stands for taking further down the path of taking away, distributing the power without creating chaos. I think that is a hard balance, right? And in Bitcoin, somehow, who knows who Satoshi is, but somehow there is this system that is fully distributed, but somehow it is very orderly. And I think if we can see that being created on a larger scale, it can be quite interesting. It's not just full anarchy with no government, right? With no central body planning everything, coordinating everything. It's actually somehow beautifully organized. So I think that is the origin of why I'm here and why we are here, and I think will continue to drive us forward. I assume that you may want me to say, okay, this Bitcoin thing changed my sense of time preference. I think yes and no, because I think I'm always a long-term investor mindset. I've never been a trader. When I'm at Goldman, because of the nature of the work, we look at capital markets, but I always start with asking what is the fundamental value of certain things. And I just don't have the skills to do day trade, like zero. So I'm willing to wait for something good down the road, and Bitcoin is the perfect fit for that. I don't have to trade it. I just buy, hold, and beautiful things happen. That's great.
Exactly. That's actually the only thing that you have to do. Buy and hold your own keys.
Hold my own keys. Yeah, I do that too. Buy a little bit things every day, and then once it gets to a certain point, move it off. Get to your own wallet.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a very nice and great closing statement. Thank you very much, Hong. Thank you for your time. And last but not least, where can people find you and maybe get in contact you or get to know more about you and your work?
Sure. I'm on Twitter. My handle is hfangca. My DM is always open. Our company, OKcoin, Twitter handle is @OKcoin. The DM is also open, so you know where to find me or find us. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Great. I will put that in the show notes. So thanks for your time. All the best, and looking forward to see you in El Salvador soon.
Same here. Thank you, Anita.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening and joining this interview. I think it was very interesting to hear Hong's insights on China and also her experiences with Wall Street. Please subscribe to my show in your podcast player and recommend it to your friends. The more, the better. See you next week when it's time for the Anita Posch Show.